Okay, we are going to begin. Are there questions? Okay, so if not, let me start. So yesterday we got the total rate for N to P conversion. Per neutron. So let me write down that formula once more. R N to P had the form the constant A, then integral from minus infinity to infinity, but we had to exclude certain range, which is Q plus Q must be larger than ME. Yes, so these are the formula for R N to P, and then there is a formula for R P to N. This is the rate for P to N conversion per proton. And this was given by a similar formula. With the sign of the exponents reversed. So sign of the exponents in the denominator reversed. So today we are going to study some properties of this formula. Okay, in fact, some properties that we had said we expect from physical considerations, but we will now check that this is really true. So the first property we want to verify is that at low temperature, the contribution to R from N to P comes dominantly from the neutron decay. Okay. So consider T much larger than Q, much smaller than Q. Okay, Q is of order MeV. Okay. And this means that T nu also is much smaller than Q, much smaller than Q, right? Because T nu by T ratio is some constant fixed. So now, if you look at the expression for the R N to P, okay, we see that the denominator for R N to P is large in two different ranges. One, okay, let's set mu nu and mu equal to 0 because these are small anyway. Okay. So one, it is large when Q is much larger than 0, right? When Q over T nu is large. And it's also large when this quantity is negative. That means Q plus Q is much smaller than 0. And this large and small is measured relative to T. So unit is T here. Okay, so when I say Q much larger than 0, that means if Q is a large multiple of T, then the denominator is suppressed. Okay, T and T nu are of the same order, so I'm not distinguishing at this stage. And this is saying that when Q plus Q or minus Q minus of Q plus Q is a large multiple of T, then again it is suppressed because the denominator is large. So let's see what region it corresponds to in the small q space. So let me draw the small q space over here. Okay, so let's say q equal to 0. And here you have q minus q. And now let's mark two more points. This is minus q plus me and minus q minus me. So this condition basically excludes this region. Okay, this region is excluded anyway. Then what this is saying is that this region, okay, the positive q region, the integrand is small. So in this region, the integrand is small. And similarly, you see that for q less than minus q, right? That means from here onwards, okay, but this region is excluded anyway. So you can say that for this whole region also, it's small. So basically the dominant contribution we can see basically comes from this region. So dominant contribution comes from this region. So let's see what that region corresponds to. That corresponds to minus q plus me less than q less than 0. Now q negative means that the neutrinos are in the outgoing state. Okay, and so E nu is minus q. So E nu lies between, this is lies between 0 and q minus q. Okay. And this you can easily recognize as corresponding to the decay channel. N goes to p plus E minus plus nu e bar. Okay. This is the region that corresponds to this range of q, or equivalently this range of E nu. Okay, you can see by energy conservation, E nu, okay, can be at most the mass of n minus mass of p minus the mass of E minus, and that's q minus, q minus small u. Sorry, let me. Q minus me. Okay, is this clear? So this is confirming that the dominant contribution to the N to P ratio, N to P rate for low enough temperature comes from neutron decay. And leave it as an exercise to check that for T much smaller than Q, for MeV, RT to N is small. Which means that the denominator is large. Denominator large is large for all Q. And it's not perhaps very hard to see, because now what's going to happen is that you see that instead of excluding this range, okay, because the signs have changed, instead of excluding the positive Q range, okay, the first you will exclude the negative Q range, okay, because the integrand is large, small in that region. And here the smallness region will start from Q and extend to the positive region for positive direction. Okay. So these region, these two now will cover the entire Q axis. Okay, so there is no range of Q where the denominator is not large. Okay, and that's why the P to N ratio will be small, the P to N rate will be small, and that again we expect, because when the temperature has come down drastically, then the collisions, you simply don't have enough energy in the electron and the neutrino to convert a proton to a neutron. Okay, are there questions? Okay, now let me go to the second point that you want to discuss.
Sir?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Sir, in the last lecture, sir, when you write the integral equation, total rate, in case of total rate, sir, you write the value of k for both, like negative and positive. Like we have all kind of equation uh, in case of total rate.
In case of total rate, okay, let me just
Yeah,
check what you're.
because I got confused in this.
I have to open that file, I think. This one. Yeah, this one you are.
Yeah, yeah, this one, sir.
Yes.
I got confused in the value of Q because as we know that the neutron decay is more dominant. So in that case, we are considering all reaction, like all. Um,
Okay.
uh,
This includes everything. Okay, I
oh,
forgot this constant T, I think. So this
okay,
includes the full range of Q, except that this particular range, and this contains, as we discussed, that this contains a contribution from the this one, and this one, because
okay,
this one corresponding to this range of Q, right? From
yes,
minus infinity to minus Q minus ME. This will correspond to the range of Q, which is where Q is positive, and this one will correspond to the range of Q where Q lies in this range.
okay, yes, sir.
Okay, so Q, I mean, you should think of this Q is in this one, right? The definition of Q was that Q was minus E nu, right? Here you have taken Q to be minus E nu. Okay, and this is reflecting the fact that nu is in the final state. Okay? Here nu is in the initial state, so Q is positive.
Yes, sir.
And the neutrino can carry any energy that it likes, right? Because it can go all the way from 0 to infinity, and that's why what this range, Q from 0 to infinity. Here, the neutrino is in the final state. So again, E nu is minus Q. So here the range of E nu, let's look at the range of E nu. E nu has to be, of course, it has to be larger than 0. But there's an upper bound, right, which is Mn minus Mp minus Me. Right? That's Q minus Me. Okay. So E nu lies between this, and then by taking the negative of that, we get the Q lies between in this range. So what we claimed, okay, this we didn't show, but this just follows from the crossing symmetry. You have to work out the details. That all of these are given by the same integrand, except that the range of Q integration covers from minus infinity to minus Q minus Me for this process. It covers the range 0 to infinity for this process, and it covers the range from minus Q plus Me to 0 for this process. Right, and that's how we got the result for the total rate. Okay, we just added up the contribution. And the point is that these three ranges together, you can see it does not cover the full range of small q, because here it goes up to minus Q minus Me, and here it starts from the lower limit is minus Q plus Me. So the range between minus Q minus Me and minus Q plus Me, that range is left out.
Okay, sir.
Okay, that's why you have this exclusion, right? It's from minus infinity to infinity, but this range is left out.
Okay, 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 sir. I got it.
And similarly for Rp to N, you can do a similar calculation. Okay, again, the cross sections are the same, related by crossing symmetry. But what changes are the occupation numbers of the final state and the initial state, and that's why these factors are different.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, are there other questions? Okay, so now the second point we wanted to check is that we want to estimate the time or the energy at which the rates go below the expansion rate. And because these are weak interaction processes, right? Anything that involves neutrino is a weak interaction process. We expect that this will happen more or less at the same time that the neutrinos decouple, right? That's of the order of MeV. Okay, but let's just make an estimate and see if that is really the case. So Rn goes to P. Let me use that formula. So now let's look at. So we consider T to be larger than of order MeV. Okay, and we'll just make some rough estimate, order of magnitude estimate. Okay. So Rn to P is A times integral dq 1 minus me square over q plus q whole square, and then you have q square q plus q square over 1 plus e to the power minus q plus q over t. I'm just ignoring the mu's because they are 0 anyway. 1 plus e to the q by t nu. Okay, I'm again not distinguishing between t and t nu. Okay. So from this, it's clear that the integral runs over the range q of order t, right? Because for q, when q becomes much larger than t, then this becomes small. This makes that thing small. When q becomes much smaller than t, then this becomes small. Okay. So q is roughly of order t, which is the same as of order q. Okay. So this is roughly a times integral, say minus t to t dq q to the 5. Sorry, q to the 4, okay, because this, I'm just replacing this by q square because q, small q is of order t anyway. So this is q to the 4, so that's like 8 to the 5. Okay. And the value of a we had given, okay, so a, let me write, okay, I'll just, let's just forget about the numerical coefficient. So this is g weak square, okay, and g weak is of order 10 to the minus 5, GeV to the minus 2. So we can write this as 10 to the minus 5 GeV to the minus 2 times, sorry, GeV to the 10 to the minus 10 to the minus 10, GeV to the minus 4. T to the 5. So this I'll write as 10 to the minus 10 GeV to the minus GeV to the minus 1 and T to the 5, sorry, not GeV to the minus 1, T to the 5, T over GeV to the power. Okay, so now this I'll convert to T over MEV, okay, using the fact that GeV is 10 to the 3 MEV, and now this one I'm going to will convert to time. Okay, and the easiest way to do that is just you first convert it to the Planck scale, right, and then you replace it by Planck time. Okay, that's the way we convert from this to time. In fact, it's 1 over time. So this I'll leave as an exercise to check. Exercise. that this is about 1 second inverse times T over MEV to the power 5. Is this clear how to do this? Right? Because this we have been doing many times, right? Do you know that this has to have the unit of 1 over second because it's a rate. This is dimensionless. So this of course is simple. T over GeV, we write as T over MEV, T over 10 to the 3 MEV, right? So that gives a factor of 10 to the minus 5. And now you basically have to convert this to the seconds by, so you can either do it directly or you first convert it to the Planck scale, Planck time, and then convert it to second from there. Anyway, so this you can easily do. This is an exercise. Now we had also calculated lambda dot over lambda around this scale. So you know that it's of order t squared. But if you recall, the neutrino decoupling analysis, this is of order t squared because it's the square root of rho, right? And rho is of order t to the 4. If you recall the neutrino decoupling analysis, it was basically 1 over 1 second, 1 over second times T over MEV square. So this means that the rate R n to P, okay, so which is of order 1 over second times T over MEV to the 5, this falls below the expansion rate. When T over MEV falls below 1, okay, that means T falls below MEV. Okay, which is what we had been expecting because the proton to neutron conversion is also the weak interaction effect. Okay, other questions? Okay, so once we have got the formula for this, A is a known constant. Okay, everything here is known. D nu and T, we know how it evolves as a function of time. So once you have gotten the expression for the N to P rate and P to N rate, we can use this to calculate how much the rate of change of the densities of neutrons and protons. Okay, so let's see what kind of formula we get. So time evolution of Nn and Np. So we have d dt of Nn lambda cube is minus R n to p times Nn lambda cube plus R p to n times Np lambda cube. Right? Because this is telling us that the rate of change of the total neutron number of neutrons per co-moving volume, okay, is given by the number of neutrons per co-moving volume times the transition rate per neutron. Okay, and minus sign means that it's actually decreasing when neutron gets converted to proton. And this is opposite. When proton gets converted to neutron, the number of neutrons is increasing. That's why it's a plus sign. Okay, and it's proportional to the number of protons in a co-moving volume. Now we also have this conservation law, the baryon number conservation, the d dt of Nn plus Np times lambda cube equal to 0. So what we are going to do now is to write, okay, we define xn as a fraction that is neutron. Okay, so this Nn over Nn plus Np So 1 minus xn will be np over nn plus np. And we'll try to derive an equation for xn. And that's easily done. We simply take this equation over here. And we divide by nn plus np lambda cube. Okay. Because this is constant, okay, we can divide by this and we can take this inside the derivative, okay, because it is constant anyway. So we get d dt of xn as minus r n to p times this nn lambda cube over this gives you xn plus r p to n times 1 minus xn. So which means that because we know this, we can now simply numerically solve these equations. Okay, so even though we don't have equilibrium, we can numerically solve this time evolution equation for xn to find how xn changes as a function of time. Is this clear? Are there questions? So what I'm going to do next is to give the...
Sir?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, could you again talk about the energy scale in this where deuterium appears?
No, that has not appeared yet. At this stage, you are ignoring all nuclear formation.
Yeah, so what is the energy at which deuterium would start to form?
That's about 0.1 MeV.
And we are at 1 MeV.
Between 1 and 0.1, say.
Like, isn't that close by?
Oh, no, that's not quite close by. I mean, deuterium, as we'll see, the deuterium will form, I mean, that formation happens very sharply. So at this stage, you can ignore the nuclei. I mean, you can estimate how much, what fraction will be deuterium, for example, and in this case, and it will be a very tiny fraction.
Okay.
Compared to neutrons and protons. Okay, so we'll see how to do these estimates later, but that will be negligible.
So also, is that even a QFT process?
Well, not, I mean, it's a nuclear physics process.
Yeah.
Right? And the nuclear cross sections are all well measured. So you can certainly use the same formula and with measured values of the cross sections to actually carry out the evolution, including the nuclei.
All right.
And eventually you have to do that to find the actual fraction of nuclei. But we'll also see that there, to get an estimate, we can use a shortcut. And that gives a reasonably good result. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other question? Okay, so now I'm going to give a table of the kind that we had given earlier. Okay, that time we had given the neutrino temperature. If you remember, neutrino and the temperature versus time. So now I'm going to give, okay, I'm going to give the time again. Okay, so the same table will be repeated. So T in Kelvin. And then I have in the next one, T in seconds. T in second. And here I have Xn. So like the last time we start at 10 to the 11K. Okay, and I'll not write all the MeV results, but let me just remind you that this is about 8.6 MeV. So we had started T to be 0 here. Okay, maybe it's like 0.01, but let's set it equal to 0 anyway. And the Xn, we can calculate just from thermal ensemble, right? We had written on the formula in the thermal equilibrium. At this stage, there is no departure from thermal equilibrium. So the StatMech gives you this. Okay, and you can take it as the initial condition to start your evolution. Again, I'll urge you that you have all the data, so you can try to write a computer program to actually verify this table. Okay, this is an important. So this is 100 times this, so 0.086 MeV here. Okay, this is assuming that the only neutrons and protons are present. Of course, this is not correct, right? Because this is the time close to this is when the nucleosynthesis happens. Okay, so these numbers are not trustable. Okay, so these numbers are not trustable because this ignores the presence of nuclei. Okay, but if we just follow without worrying about the nuclei, if we just follow those equations, these are the numbers we'll get. Okay. And the other point is that in this region, okay, it's StatMech, and lower down here, okay, it is a neutron decay, right? Because as we had discussed, that a T of order MeV and higher, T higher than MeV, right, which is in this region, you can use StatMech because equilibrium is a good assumption. Whereas for T much below MeV, you can just think of this as a free neutron decay because that's what controls the actual reduction in the number of neutrons. So this table will be important later, but important, the most important number will be here, okay, because you will say this is a nucleosynthesis time, okay, and it's important to know what is the fraction of neutron at this time, okay, and because this is going to determine the hydrogen to helium ratio at that time.
So shouldn't our initial data have been something like T equals 0, Xn being 0.5?
Initial data should have been
Xn equal 0.5, like half.
Well, the reason that it's not Xn equal at T equal to infinity, indeed Xn would have been 0.5. Okay, not infinity, but at sufficiently high temperature. But at this stage, see, you look at 8.6 MeV, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at this factor of e to the minus q by t, this is equilibrium statistical mechanism, e to the minus q by t, right? E to the minus q by t in this case is like e to the minus q is 1 MeV and t is like 10 MeV, right? E to the minus 1 over 10. So it's not 1, right? The neutron to proton ratio. So Xn over 1 minus Xn in this case is given by the equilibrium result, but it's not 1, right? It's close to 1, but it's still a little less than 1, and that's what accounts for this. If this had been 1, then xn would have been 0.5, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's basically this which makes this not
And
different.
it's not really like small t is not really 0 though.
Small t is?
I mean, it's some point something seconds, like probably, right? But I mean, small t equals 0 is the start of radiation, right? The 10 to the
Yeah. Okay. So this is
GeV.
okay. I mean, this is not 0. Okay, this is a 0.01 or something, right? See, strictly at small
Yeah.
t equal to 0, right? The Big Bang. There are no protons and neutrons. Everything is quarks and gluons, right? So you can start talking about protons and neutrons only above, below, say, 100 MeV. Okay, when the quark gluons have frozen into protons and neutrons. And that at 100 MeV, this number would have been much closer to my 0.5, right? Because it, instead of getting minus 1/10, you will get it to be minus 1 over 100.
Yeah.
So it's still not really 1, right? It to the minus, even it to the minus 1 over 100, right? It to the minus 0.01 is what? 0.49, right? Or 1 minus 0.01, so 0.99. See, it's not still 1. Okay, you will still see a small difference here.
Okay.
Any other question?
The last two data, are they just because of extrapolation?
Because of?
Are we extrapolating this equation to find the value of number of nuclei?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so these two which I have crossed out, right? These are extrapolation assuming the no nuclear nucleus formation has taken place.
Okay.
These are the solutions to these equations. Okay, without taking into account the formation of nuclei. Was that your question? Yeah. So here, that's why these are not correct. Okay, so now we are going to turn to the third step. Okay, so what were the first two steps? First step was to determine the time evolution of T nu and T. The second step was to determine the time evolution of Xn, right? The fraction of neutrons that are present. So step 3 will be the actual analysis of nucleosynthesis. But this all, again, as you'll see, will be divided into two parts. Okay, so process of nucleosynthesis. Now I should remind you that in order to get here, in order to get this table, you had to use a previous table, right? Because previous table told us how T nu over T changes as a function of time. And that data is needed because the rates, right, the expression for the rates that enter these differential equations, this you can clearly see depends on T and T nu, right? So we have written down this in the first. Yeah, this depends on T nu and T. So you need to know how T nu and T changes as a function of time to actually calculate R at a given time and put that in the differential equation to find put that in this differential equation to find the actual time evolution of Xn. So this table is not independent of the previous table. Okay, so now let me first give the basic processes that are involved. Okay? And basically we'll stop at helium because helium is the most stable of the light nuclei. So the processes that are involved are these. Okay, P plus N goes to deuteron plus gamma. The deuteron is 1P plus 1N. Then D plus D going to H3 plus P. D plus D goes to helium 3 plus N. And then D plus H3 goes to helium 4 plus N. and D plus He3 goes to helium-4 plus P. Okay, so basically the helium-4 forms by this successive steps. Okay? And you see that in order for this, all of these processes to take place, you need deuteron. Okay, so unless you can form deuteron, okay, you don't have these processes. Now you could imagine that we produce, say, helium at one go by bringing 2 protons and 2 neutrons to collide with each other. Okay. Now this is possible in principle, okay, except that the probability of that is extremely low. And the reason for that is that the baryon density, right, the density of protons and neutrons are already very low, right? We have seen that the number of protons and neutrons divided by the number of photons is like 10 to the minus 9. Okay, so that's the measure of how dense this system is, okay, the proton-neutron system. And because of this low density, the probability that the 4 particles, okay, or even 3 particles will come together and collide is extremely low. Okay, and that's how you have not even listed those probabilities here. Okay, those processes. Yes, go ahead, please.
This could have been, in principle, compensated by the cross section, right? If the cross section of the diagrams would have been very large.
Yeah, it could have been. Okay, but it's not so large so as to compensate for this 10 to the minus 9 factors.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so now the other point to notice here is that these processes are the strong interaction processes. And the way to recognize it is that they don't involve any neutrino or photon. So these are strong interaction processes. On the other hand, this is electromagnetic interaction. So this is very fast. Okay, strong interaction is very fast. Okay. Electromagnetic interaction is, of course, faster than weak, but it's slower than strong interaction. Okay. So this is rate is not as fast as strong interaction. So this is basically the reason why the process gets delayed. Okay, this is because unless you can form enough number of deuterons by this electromagnetic interaction, you don't start forming the other ones. Okay, even though if you just apply equilibrium statistical mechanics formula, okay, you will see that the numbers become much larger than what they actually are at a given time. Okay, because of this fact that you have to go through this deuteron creation process. Okay. So we can, of course, do a full analysis, right? So for the full analysis, okay, let's just say what we will do for the full analysis. Okay, so for full analysis, we define, say, yi, which is Ni over Nb, okay, where Ni is the number of nuclei of ith type. Okay. So Ni is density of ith type nucleus. Okay, so that could be protons and neutrons themselves, right? We can also think of them as nuclei, okay, generalized version of nuclei, or it can be any of these: deuteron, helium, hydrogen 3, helium 3, helium 4, helium, and so on. So then we can set up differential equation. So dyi dt will be given by the rate of production minus rate of destruction and you can calculate this in terms of the yi's and xn's themselves, because these cross sections can be measured in nuclear physics, right? I mean, in nuclear physics, you already know what these cross sections are. Okay, so all of these are known cross sections. Okay, so maybe I should just say it here. So for these processes, cross sections are known. Okay. So in actual numerical computation, this is what to do, right? You just plug in the rate of production minus rate of destruction, you set up the differential equation, and then you simply evolve them with time. Okay, it's basically generalization of what you already did earlier, okay? But except that instead of having just the fraction of neutrons and fraction of protons, you also have other variables that enter the equation. So it's a equation for many variables, right? Not just one variable like here. But the otherwise the method is similar. But what you are going to do is to define, describe a shortcut. We shall use a simplifying assumption. Now, when I say reasonably accurate result, it's not that after calculating the result, we find that it agrees with the numerical results. We can also justify why it's reasonably accurate. Okay. So we'll even estimate the error. Okay, so in this process, we will estimate the error that you make. Okay, we'll estimate the error. Okay, and we will see the error is not very large. Okay. So let me say what the assumption is. Okay. So we'll assume that nucleosynthesis begins at some time t1 when the density of D reaches a critical value. And furthermore, once it begins, it happens very fast. And we can estimate the numbers the yi's by using equilibrium statistical mechanics formula. Okay, and we will see how exactly this is done. Okay. So when I said we will estimate the error, we will actually estimate the error in T1. Okay, we'll see that given if we assume that it happens instantaneously, okay, we'll be able to make a prediction of the helium to hydrogen ratio at least. Okay. And then we will make an estimate of the error that we make in T1. Okay, and that will tell us how much error we are making in estimating the helium to hydrogen ratio. Okay. So basically this means that it involves two steps. So there are two steps. The first step is to estimate the time t1 or equivalently the temperature, right? Because time temperature relation of course is known, at which nucleosynthesis begins. Or it happens, because as I said, once it begins, it happens almost instantaneously. That's what our assumption is. And then the step B, will be to actually use equilibrium statistical mechanics StatMech to compute the YIs. Is this clear? Are there questions?
So,
Yes, go ahead, please. Hello, I think your voice got cut. Can anybody else hear him, or is it my problem? Okay, let me proceed anyway.